Where's the $1.5 billion that was given to the Democratic Party? Where is it? Where'd the money go? Why was Oprah given $2.5 million? Why was Al Sharpton's National Action Network given that much money? Before interviews, by the way. Why? I think it was $500K for the National Action Network. Why? I want to be clear. I don't have any problem with the National Action Network taking that money because they don't have a lot of money. I have more of a problem with Oprah taking $2.5 million when she's worth over $1 billion. But speaking to us as if her heart and soul was so immersed in supporting Kamala Harris. Well, then why didn't you do it for free? I'm just asking. Ladies and gentlemen, my life is good. Last time I checked, they get all into your personal business. Ain't nobody think about my personal business. Not that I have anything to hide, but ain't nobody think about my personal business. I don't have to sit up there and have my whole life put on Front Street because I'm asking to legislate and govern and oversee the lives of more than 350 million American citizens. Hell no. Am I interested? No. But if the American people reached out to me and said, we need you, brother. We need you. I'm not lying when I say I'd consider it. I just consider that close to an impossibility. And it does make me scratch my head like I got damn dandruff. It does make me scratch my head profusely when I imagine what the hell are y'all thinking? And then I came to this conclusion. You know what they thinking? They sick and tired of the bullshit that we've been hearing. Identity politics, woke culture, cancel culture. We weren't hearing what we want to hear. And the Democrats don't have a voice. That you had to be gone when you knew that fires could engulf the city, if not the state. Where were you? Why were you there? What purpose did that serve to the citizens that you were elected to govern over? So that's one thing when it comes to her. The other thing is Governor Gavin Newsom. It's a local issue, not really a state issue. Did you really try to pass the buck to local authorities instead of you? Did you try to do that? It makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. And just to get into somewhat of a history lesson, did you know that Donald Trump wanted to pump water from Canada into California when he was the president of the United States from 2017 to 2021 and Gavin Newsom resisted? Did you know that? Did you know that Donald Trump had been speaking about the potential of such a disaster taking place and was utterly ignored? Fast forward, nearly 6 years later, water and fire hydrants non-existent. We saw firefighters standing outside looking at homes burning. And when they were asked why they weren't doing anything, they said, we put the hose, connected it to the fire hydrants, we turned it on, and no water came out. No water was available. This in a state that's collected nearly $221 billion in taxpayer revenue, the highest of any state in the union. You got 9 states in the United States of America, including New York, who've shelled out in excess of $1 billion for the migrant crisis. Yet California led the country with expenses of nearly $31 billion to take care of illegal immigrants and their children. According to the FAIR study, we're talking about $159 million allocated by the federal government to the state of California through FEMA, funding to provide humanitarian services to non-citizen migrants. You're talking about California being a sanctuary state. You're talking about California recently providing $4 billion per year in funding to extend taxpayer-funded health care to an additional 700,000 undocumented immigrants, scaling those costs up to 1.9 million estimated total in California results in rough total cost of $11 billion a year. The state having cut, delayed, or shifted $47 billion to balance the budget in the year 2024 alone. California is talking about cutting services or raising taxes even more so than the 14.4% that they put on you right now. And you're trying to tell me you don't have any water? No water? My personal belief is that the political career of Gavin Newsom is in peril, if not flat out over. His presidential aspirations have been eviscerated. There is no way he overcomes this. No way. And in regards to Karen Bass, to say nothing, you can come and speak out, but that video will live in infamy. You had absolutely nothing to say, flying all the way from Ghana, about a 15-hour flight to Los Angeles, and you're telling me you couldn't answer a reporter's question? No comment, we'll talk later, or let me huddle with my staff and we'll get back to you. You couldn't even think to say that? Nobody on your staff prepared you for what has been transpiring in California? Nobody gave you a warning, a heads up? You didn't have anything to say? Ladies and gentlemen, I'll never say that California is going to turn red. But I guess if something was blue and transitioned into red, I guess the color's purple or something like that. I don't know. Whatever the hell the color is, that's where it's going to get aimed towards. That's just the way it's going to be. Hell, was Trump qualified to be president? I'm talking about first go round. Was he? Wasn't Hillary more qualified? Just qualifications. I'm not talking about who you prefer, who you voted for. I'm just talking qualifications. Was not Hillary more qualified? But you decided to go that route anyway, right? And I think this argument that a bevy of Democrats are making that there was no mandate, he didn't even get 50% of the vote, that the country wants to move in a different direction, blah, blah, blah. There's a strong enough mandate that the American people didn't like what the hell they were hearing from the Democratic Party. See, this is why Stephen A. Smith, your friendly neighborhood sports analyst, is on the damn polls as a presidential candidate. That's why. You want to bring up 34 felony counts? You want to bring up 2 impeachments? You want to hear people calling him a felon? Well, then why did you lose to him? Because you were busy talking about that instead of what really, really concerns the American people. Let me break something down to y'all very, very simple. Griff! Galen and you guys, I want you to listen to this. It's very important. People don't realize, from the Democratic Party, they don't realize that y'all don't give a damn about the kind of stuff that they were talking about. Y'all don't care that Trump got convicted of 34 felony counts. You know why? Because he convinced half the American people it was politicized. The Democratic Party, as we know it, is done. It's done. The Democrats had opportunities. And once again, they didn't listen to the American people. I've said this on many occasions. When it comes to the Republicans, the Republican voter out there said, we don't give a damn what y'all say. We want Donald Trump. We want him. We don't want Nikki Haley. We don't want DeSantis. We don't want Ramaswamy. We don't want Christie. We don't want anybody. We want him. But the Democrats will tell you it's Hillary's turn. It's Joe Biden's turn. We're going to push Biden out. It's Kamala Harris's turn. And we're going to force feed our base to embrace and accept who we choose, as opposed to listening to what the American people choose.
If you out there busting your tail to make ends meet and to pay your bills, and you're going to work every day, and you got a family to take care of, and you're in New York City, you're getting stuck 2 hours of your day, you're stuck in traffic. You understand? You got a whole bunch of stuff to go through. You don't have time to know what you and I know.
Maybe you need to listen to the news when you're in traffic.
Well, again,
maybe
I agree
not.
with that.
Be uninformed.
Or listen to stuff that's going to take you away from the things that brings down your spirit. Yeah. And that's unfortunately what most voters are doing.
Your thoughts on the election as it just went down?
I was surprised at how lopsided it was. I was not surprised by the outcome. Right. I saw the outcome coming from a mile away. You have to take into account, listen, we respect our president, Joe Biden, but here's the reality. He got into office. He promised to be a transitional president, to be a stopgap to pave the way for somebody else to come on board. Into the midterms, it was supposed to be a red wave. It did not happen. The Democrats was flying high. He felt the momentum because he was the incumbent. And instead of leaving, he decided to stay. When he decided to stay, the Democrats were in a quandary because they were expecting him to leave. Now he wants to stay. They're around him. They're seeing the fastball has dissipated to some degree. They're seeing that he's not what he used to be. And what do you do about it? You grease the skids. There's no primary for him to experience. You let him go on stage June 27th, and clearly he was exposed. 3.5 weeks later, he's forced and compelled to step away because donors to the Democratic establishment, they were not going to support that. And then Kamala Harris is inserted. I don't blame her one bit.
Same.
I thought she did a phenomenal job.
Yep.
She went all out. She did what she could, but you can't overcome that kind of situation. And remember, there's 2 C words that are incredibly important in America. Capitalism is one. Mm-hmm. Competition is another, because it's a metaphor for capitalism in a lot of people's eyes. Because you were inserted, even though you were the vice president and it was the Biden-Harris administration, you had folks who are independent. I'm not talking about those on the right, and I'm not talking about those on the left, just independents, who said, wait a minute, she didn't experience a primary either. And the last time we saw her in a primary was 4 years ago, and she didn't even make it to Iowa. They used that as an excuse to point to her level of inexperience. Then you got the war in Russia and Ukraine, you got the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, Hamas and Hezbollah and all of that stuff, and you had Trump using codes. Look, do you want her? Where is she? Where's the interviews? Where's she showing herself? Where's the tough questions? Where's the interrogation? He leaned on certain things, and you knew people were going to gravitate to that because right now, as divided as our country is, fear comes associated with that. And because that fear was there, he fed off of it.
Yeah.
And people bought it, hook, line, and sinker. And that's why he's the president.
There's a lot to unpack of what kind of went wrong for Democrats here. I think a factor is the working class feeling left behind, not reaching out to rural Americans. What do you identify as what Democrats got wrong? And it seems like you agree Biden maybe should have stepped aside sooner.
He definitely should have stepped aside. I said it a year ago. I was on camera. Everybody was getting on me. I said it a year ago. He needs to step aside.
You took some heat.
Does everybody remember he originally said he was just going to do it for 4 years?
Right. That's what I brought up.
Right. Did you think that once you know who stepped stepped in, he said, well, there's nobody, we don't have anybody.
Well, the point is that
right.
it's not about who you're going up against when you know you're not what you used to be. And see, this is where covering sports puts me at a distinct advantage. I cover people every day where it's time for you to go, but you're holding on and you don't want to leave. And so now here you are, to answer your question directly, you are the left, you leaned, and you were a prisoner to the extreme left in a lot of people's eyes. Well, guess what? Most of America doesn't operate on the fringes. Whether you're left or you're right, you're relatively centrist. You believe in compromise, negotiation, working with one another. Nobody gets to get everything they want. The problem is those on the fringes continuously push for you to get everything you want. They're not about getting things done. They're about getting their way. And if they're not going to get their way, they're about complaining about it because they understand that when you are operating based off of grievance, that's usually what provokes you to get to the polls. And that is why they don't mind feeling aggrieved and displaying and disseminating that kind of message, because they know people are going to gravitate to that. And as a result, that might get them to the polls, you thinking you're going to get what you want as a result of it. And in this particular case, the Republicans were right.
So you think the Republicans are sort of an extreme fringe party?
I don't think that they're an extreme fringe party. I think that they're operating against those they believe are extreme on the left. Like, for example, when you talk about the LGBTQ community, I'm a fiscal conservative and I'm a social liberal. I'm fiscal with my dollars. I ain't apologizing for not wanting to pay high taxes to anybody. I'm not apologizing for that, right? But outside of that, I'm pretty liberal. Live and let live, okay? But you had folks on the left that were introducing some things when we got in the whole transgender issue, and they were talking about bathrooms, or they were talking about males transitioning to females and competing against girls in sports and stuff like that. These
That's
are
less than 1% of the population.
I understand that, but see, but I think that's where the mistake is made.
Yeah.
You're saying it's ridiculous. I don't disagree with you.
Yeah.
But most of the voters out there don't think like that.
But that means
attitudes-
they don't have the information.
Okay, but 90% of the voters don't have the information. If you're out there busting your tail to make ends meet and to pay your bills, and you're going to work every day, and you got a family to take care of, and you got to stay, you're in New York City, you're getting stuck 2 hours of your day, you're stuck in traffic. You understand? You got a whole bunch of stuff to go through. You don't have time to know what you and I know.
Maybe you need to listen to the news when you're in traffic.
Well, again,
maybe
I agree
not.
with
Not
that.
be uninformed.
Or listen to stuff that's going to take you away from the things that brings down your spirit.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunately what most voters are doing.
Howard Stern says that he wasn't confident that the country was ready to elect the first female president because he knows how men talk behind closed doors about us. So we're very privileged to have a great guy here today.
Yeah.
Tell her, what do men say about us behind
Well,
closed
first of all,
doors?
Yeah.
Say it to
Do
our
tell.
faces.
Yeah. Do tell.
I don't hide, so no worries there. Here's the deal. I respectfully disagree with Howard Stern, only from the standpoint that I wish he had been more specific. Why don't you say white men? Because let me tell you something about black men. We love our mamas. And when we're trifling, we know it's us. It's not them.
Right, yeah.
You
I
understand?
understand. I
So
don't.
when he's saying that, okay, well then let's talk about white men. We have a white power structure that still exists in this country today. I understand the white populace in this country was over 85% at one time. It's now dipped to about 57.4%.
Yep.
The white power structure is still in place. So when we talk about misogyny, when we talk about chauvinism, when we talk about women not necessarily being empowered, well, who's in a position of power to surrender some of that power? It's white men. So I think that when Howard Stern was talking, I can't speak to what white men are thinking. I can tell you this much. Black men, we revere women.
Yeah.
We don't have any problem looking at a woman as a leader.
We got to stop making a big deal of certain things. Like, for example, you raised over $1 billion. Ladies and gentlemen, there were tens of millions of people in the United States of America who wanted Donald Trump to lose. It's a binary system that we're living in. If you didn't support her, you were going to support him. So evidently, you were going to get some money. And oh, by the way, that $1 billion+ what did it translate into? She lost 31 states. He swept the swing states, the blue states, got 312 electoral college votes. Ladies and gentlemen, excuse my language, that is an ass whipping. That is what that is. There is no way around it, which means that there needs to be an autopsy done on a Democratic Party. Because you see, I'm not necessarily happy that Donald Trump win, but I'm a gracious loser. And more importantly than anything else, I'm about what's in the best interest of the country. And if the country decidedly picked one candidate over another, we have no choice but to pay attention to that. This wasn't some close race to be debated. They were projecting that Donald Trump was going to lose and potentially that the outcome wouldn't be decided for a minimum of 5 days and possibly as long as a week. Ladies and gentlemen, the results came in 5 hours. 7 hours was when they called it without hesitancy. It was over. It was a romp. By 2 p.m. the next morning, that's a romp. That's a romp. And now we're looking at all of these different things. And we got to take into account certain things. You know, Sean Hannity's about to come up here in a few minutes. He's about to come on the show. No disrespect, everybody has the freedom to do what they want to do. Bill O'Reilly was here last week. He was on the show. See Barack Obama, he got an invite. Kamala Harris, she got an invite. Hakeem Jeffries, he got an invite. But there's a whole bunch of candidates, and you were waiting for them to answer questions. Think about what they're saying about Kamala Harris to this very day, at this particular moment in time. They're saying there was a lot of questions that she wasn't answering, that her answers weren't in depth enough about the economy. No responsibility embraced because of what happened at the borders with immigration. You know, they kept playing her commercial when she said weeks ago, capitulating to the extreme left, that she would be for transgenders getting sex change operations, even if they were in prison. And I sincerely doubt she meant that, but it didn't matter. In the end, here's the bottom line, what I've learned just by listening to everybody over the last few days. Yes, they're going to talk about the economy. It's the economy, stupid. It's the economy, stupid. It's the economy, stupid. Sure, they're going to talk about our borders. Over 11.6 million people crossing the border illegally. Sure, they're going to question all of those things, crimes in the streets and stuff like that. All of a sudden, we see New York Mayor Eric Adams talking about they're going to do away, rather, with those prepaid credit cards they were willing to give to folks who cross the border. We're hearing all of this right now. This is what my opinion is. Don't tell me that the extreme left, with the cancer culture, with people getting in trouble for saying the wrong pronoun, with men transitioning to women, playing in women's sports, had nothing to do with it. In the end, you had tens of millions of Americans saying enough of this shit. Donald Trump might be crazy in their eyes, but at least his crazy returns us to a level of normalcy we're accustomed to, rather than the stuff we're dealing with right now.